Have you ever looked at something huge and ancient and wondered if you could find a brand new way to understand it? Well, today we're diving into an incredibly ambitious creative project that does exactly that. It blends poetry, mathematics, and faith to map out an entire sacred text. Let's get into it.
Really think about that for a second. The Quran has 114 chapters or surahs and more than 6,200 verses. So how would you even begin to create a single, unified system for all of it? That's the mind-bending creative challenge we're going to unpack today.
So, here's our game plan. We'll start with the big idea, this new map for the Quran. Then we'll break down the poetic blueprint at its core. After that, we'll see how it mixes in sacred geometry, watch the whole system in action, and finally, get into the why behind creating something like this in the first place.
All right. So at its heart, this is one massive creative mission: to build a single, cohesive system that acts like a poetic and numerological key for every single one of the Quran's 114 chapters. No small task. Just let those numbers sink in. Trying to apply one consistent framework to a text this huge, this diverse, and this spiritually important, well, it's just a monumental effort. It really speaks to an incredible level of dedication and a deep, deep desire to find hidden patterns in structure.
So how does it actually work? The whole thing is built on a really elegant idea. Every single chapter, all 114 of them, gets distilled down into a consistent 5-line poem. That's the poetic heart of the system.
And this 5-line structure isn't random. It actually creates a complete narrative arc for each poem. You start with the chapter's essence, then you get the key lesson, then comes the trial or the main conflict. That's followed by the divine solution, and it all wraps up with the eternal message. It's like a mini story told in just 5 lines, over and over again.
Okay, let's make this real. Here's how the formula looks when you apply it to chapter 112, Al-Ikhlas, which is all about the oneness of God. The essence, pure monotheism. The lesson, God's absolute unity. The trial is the rejection of polytheism. The solution is that nothing can compare to God. And it all leads to this very powerful, unifying final line.
And that final line, that's the signature of the entire project. It appears at the end of every single one of the 114 poems. It takes the chapter's name, in this case, Ikhlas, and connects it right back to the central symbol of the whole system, the pentagon. This repetition is what makes it all feel so unified and intentional. It's a masterstroke, really.
But here's where it gets even more layered. The poetry is just one part of it. The system then weaves in this complex code of numerology and sacred geometry. It adds this whole other dimension of meaning to everything.
A really key number in this system is 7. Now, in a lot of traditions, including Islamic ones, 7 is a number that represents spiritual completion. And you see that idea pop up right away in the Quran's opening chapter.
And here's the perfect example. The very first chapter of the Quran, called Al-Fatiha, has exactly 7 verses. So the system creates this beautiful parallel, linking those 7 verses to the idea of the 7 celestial realms, or the 7 heavens. It's a way of mapping the text onto a cosmic blueprint.
The next key number, 5, is even more central. You could say it's the DNA of the entire project, from its name all the way down to its structure.
Yeah, the symbolism of 5 is just everywhere here. It stands for the 5-sided pentagon in the project's name. It's why there are 5 lines in every poem, and it connects directly to core ideas like the 5 pillars of Islam. It is the absolute central organizing principle.
Now, this is interesting. This system isn't static. It's a living, creative work that actually evolved over time. The source material points out that some early numerological connections felt a bit forced. For example, one early idea linked the number 3 to the Christian Trinity, which is a pretty controversial link to make in an Islamic context. So it was later revised to something that fit better, like historical cycles. This just shows it's a creative process, not some rigid, unchangeable dogma.
Okay, so we've got the poetry, we've got the numbers. But does this system actually hold up across the entire text? Does that 5-phase blueprint stay consistent? Let's take a look.
This is where you can really see the power of the system. Check out this table. We have chapters with totally different themes. One is a prayer, one is about law, another is about pure monotheism. But look, they all map perfectly onto the same narrative phases. They all move from an opening idea to a trial, a struggle, and finally to mercy.
This really drives home that structural consistency the creator was going for.
You know, this whole search for hidden mathematical meaning isn't happening in a vacuum. It's part of a broader field in Quranic studies called ijaz adadi. As you can see, this is literally the study of meaningful numerical patterns in the Quran. This drive to find a divine mathematical logic hidden in the words, that's a huge part of the motivation for the whole Pentagon Poetry project.
And that brings us to the biggest question of all. Why? Why do this? Why pour so much time and creative energy into such a monumental task? What's the human impulse behind this quest for a hidden architecture? Well, the source material is pretty clear on one thing. This was no weekend hobby. The reviewer rightly says that this is obviously the result of hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of painstaking work. It's a true passion project, through and through. So, the purpose here is really multi-layered. On one level, it's about finding those hidden patterns, those secret connections. It's also about giving structure to a book that can feel overwhelming. But it's also about creating a whole new art form for spiritual reflection. And ultimately, it's this beautiful attempt to merge two worlds that seem so different, the cold logic of math and the warm spirit of faith.
In the end, whether you see this as theology, as art, or as a massive data visualization project, the Pentagon Poetry System is really a powerful testament to a universal human drive. It shows our deep-seated need to find patterns, to create systems, and to use every tool we have, art, math, poetry, you name it, to connect with the ideas that mean the most to us. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it, what other complex systems, or texts, or even parts of our own lives might have these hidden architectures, just waiting for someone to come along with a creative new map to reveal them. What patterns are just sitting there, hidden in the stories we think we already know so well?